Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Tom from Cerulean Bay, and this is Tropical Escapes at Home, where we give you all the tips and information we can about how to create that tropical escape that's going to just speak to you, and it's a place that you can just get away from and de-stress. That's what we are all about. So today we are going to talk about saving some money when it comes to sourcing. And sourcing is a big, huge thing because there are literally so many different places where you can buy whatever it is you need. So, as you are looking at the project on which you are about to embark, whether it is just small updates to an existing space or you want to literally dump everything and start over, budget is always a concern. A quick note about sentimental value, which we covered in our last episode. Look for the things that speak to you. Look at those carefully. Are they things that you should let go of, or do they really have true value? It could be things that were passed down from generations in the family or things that you acquired on that special trip. Look and see what you can use to repurpose in your space, and you will have just saved some money right there. We just really want to encourage people to not replace where they don't have to. So after you've gone through everything and you kind of have an idea of what it is you want to use, what it is you want to replace, and you have a good sense of where you're going with this, we think it's real important to consider sourcing. As I started off with, where are you going to buy things from? Not everything needs to be expensive. Not everything needs to be brand new. So today's topic is really all about those awesome places to find pre-owned items. We are going to be taking a close look at places like thrift stores, consignment shops, and estate sales. These are three sources of product I would have never thought to look in, well, prior to last year. But my wife is the one who got me into those. Edna and her friend, they love these places and they will go and find cool stuff. And she'll be going through our house and her friend will go through her house and they'll bring things to these places, especially the consignment shops, which we'll get into where you can make a bit of money with it. But yeah, I do strongly encourage people to look at other places rather than just strictly shopping online or going brand new. Take a look at what's out there. I think that one expression, one man's trash is another man's treasure, is a little extreme, but you never know. Depending on what it is you're trying to do with your space or how creative you are, how do it yourself you are, there's a lot of people out there that really know how to repurpose things. My sister is really good at that with furniture. We had an old it was like an antique cabinet or something that my wife and I had picked up in an estate sale, first estate sale I'd ever gone to. And it was kind of a beat up thing that we used as a liquor cabinet because we didn't have any place else to store things. And we decided after our son built us a bar that we didn't need it anymore. And my sister wanted it, and it was very ornate with the antique carvings and all of this. And I thought, what the hell is she going to do with this thing? She turned it into the most beautiful piece of furniture, and her husband reinforced the bottom of it, which so they can store some heavy cast iron things inside. But it's in this beautiful turquoisey blue. And so if you're that kind of person, hopefully this show will speak to you as well, because we've really made it a point to get out and visit different thrift stores and consignment shops and such. That if you know how to refinish or you are into reupholstery and you know how to do that, you can pick up stuff for dirt cheap. I mean, there's things out there for dollars that when you're done with it, you would probably be able to turn around and sell in the hundreds if you wanted to do it for resale. So let's take a close look at that here. And if you should happen to be on our website at all, we do have a blog post about it. The ultimate guide to finding awesome deals for pre-owned tropical home decor. You can check that out. There's also a link in there to our online shop. We have a select seconds category, which is a carefully curated selection of items. These are all pre-owned, but we are very, very selective in what we put in there because obviously they have to be in great condition and they also need to fit into the whole tropical design or motif. So everything we do have in there can be used in tropical spaces. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I think a good place to start is to address the concept of things that are pre-owned or gently used or secondhand or whatever you want to call it. They all mean the same thing. Someone else has already owned it. It is used. When I was a realtor and I was showing property, I would tell people you were buying a used house. If it wasn't new construction, it was a used house. Someone had lived there. It's not going to be perfect. That's how a lot of these items are. Some of them are pretty close to perfect. If you're lucky and you find something that is in totally new condition, that's all the more awesome. But these are terms that sometimes people assign a negative connotation to. One comparison I do like to throw out there is that if you've heard of the names like Sotheby's or Christie's, these really high end auction houses, they deal in fine arts and rare items, which cost a fortune. It's all pre owned. If you think about it, everything that they auction off was at one time or another owned by somebody else. So there you go. We're not suggesting that you go shop at Sotheby's or Christie's unless you've got the money for it. But for what we're covering today, we're a whole lot more budget friendly. So let's go ahead and kick things off with the things you would look for at these places. And they are there because we have found them. A lot of really, really great items. We'll just go through a couple categories here. Things to look for. These would be woven items. So when you get into like woven baskets and trays, woven mats, these are great items for providing texture. They provide warmth. They're things that can be displayed on walls, on tabletops, on your floors. We've seen some cool design displays where people have like a collection of baskets, or maybe they're like three different styles, but grouped together, they look really cool. And you set them up on edge. You prop them up against a chair or a side table. You can create a really cool little floor display with that. And then having some kind of woven mats are really cool. They can be used in place of rugs. So there's the woven with the grass leaves. You can get into the fibers like sisals and jutes and things like that. But these, we've come across some really cool ones at some of these places that we'll get into. Another category is wicker furniture. There's a lot of that out there. Check the condition of it as you come across it. This is things that are made from rattan, cane, bamboo, man-made synthetic materials. You know, again, just remember wicker is the method of weaving. It is not a particular plant. So anything that can be woven, you can weave it in a wicker style to create chairs and furniture and just all kinds of cool stuff. We've seen some really nice chairs, ottomans out there, other accent pieces that are made out of wicker. So these are things you can come across. You'll come across things like a lot of pottery, ceramics, glasswork, metalwork, wood pieces. When you find these things, just take a close look at what they are, because they're pots and jugs and vases, chests, boxes, planters, just about every kind of decorative accent you could possibly imagine. And some of these you will find might have a particular tropical motif, something either drawn on them or embossed or engraved. You'll find things that have seashells, palm trees, flamingos. We've come across all kinds of things like that. Just be sure that if you do find a cool piece like that, that it does fit into the overall look that you're going after. You don't want anything that is going to dominate the room or take over, where it becomes an unexpected focal point. When that happens, I like to use the phrase touristy. It starts to look touristy if you start to have too many palm trees or flamingos. It's just the eye is drawn to these things, and that's not specifically what you want. You want your room to be the whole cohesive look, as we've talked about in other episodes. But then another category of things you'll come across are tropical prints, artwork, all kinds of wall art. Oh my gosh, there's everything from A to Z out there. So be very specific, though, about what you choose. Just because something looks really cool in the store doesn't mean it's going to work at home. Remember how you've done your walls. Are they just painted? Did you go with wallpaper? Do you already have some bold wall art hanging where now this thing might clash or look out of place? Give some careful thought as you're coming across these items because many times they're non returnable. When you're at thrift stores and you're in consignment shops, the ones we've been in, all sales are final. So when you buy it, you are stuck with it. Give careful consideration to these things as you come across them. So let's go ahead and start off with thrift stores. Just some tips about how to shop at them, what to look for. This isn't just Goodwill or the Salvation Army. I think more and more different types of these have sprung up here in the Houston area. There are actually some really nice ones that you go into where everything is color coordinated and you have your clothing and you have your housewares and you have all your different areas. And within each of those, everything is neatly organized and it makes it easy to find things as you're looking through everything. But there are the ones too where it looks like a thrift store, if you know what I mean. Everything's just kind of jumbled together, piled together. So this is where you are going to have to really look at quality and just to see if there's any damage. Again, for those of you who are the do-it-yourself type, this is a gold mine because we've seen things which I didn't think needed to be as haphazardly piled as they were. If they would have just taken some time maybe to prop up a bunch of wall art that's framed and just ways that you can flip through it without everything getting damaged. If the staff would have just taken time to do that, things wouldn't get damaged. So if you do come across a pile of artwork to go through, take your time, go through it. If you are the DIY person or you come across a really cool piece of artwork and the frame is damaged, just take a moment to consider, is the frame fixable? Can you replace it without spending a ton of money? We've seen some really cool artwork in print, which was in perfect condition. The frame was crap and had to be changed out. But if you do that and you do it, in a very good economical way, you've just got yourself a really cool piece of artwork now with minimal amount of money. So just because you come across something, an area of a thrift store where it looks like a jumbled piled of everything, there are some diamonds in the rough in there that are definitely worth checking out. So go on the hunt for those. Another thing that we think you should consider in thrift stores, if they are available, are tropical fabrics. This is where you're getting into the pillows and cushions. There's throws, there's curtains, and other fabric accents that bring softness and warmth to a personal space. But you have to be very careful with these. If your thrift store even carries them, a lot of them don't take anything fabric because of hygiene issues and for health reasons. Just know that usually what you buy cannot be thrown into a washing machine. It's not that easy to clean. So it's very important to consider these things. If you find them and they're in great condition and you can clean them up, awesome, wonderful. But if you are not sure about it, it's better to err on the side of caution. Because if you just think about it for a minute, where did all these things come from? Thrift stores rely on donations. They're usually a nonprofit or a charity that owns them and runs them. And, they make their money from everything that's sold, but they do have to be careful for health reasons. This is a number one reason why most places, I don't think any of them take things like mattresses or bedding. But when it comes to pillows or just anything upholstery related, you've got to consider what house it might have been in. How clean was that house? What kind of environment was it in? Were there pets in the house? Do you have pet allergies? You don't want to bring things home now that maybe cats and dogs were calling their own. Maybe there's fleas in it. We've come across this before where you bring something home and little friends are living in it. And that was a quick trip to the trash can really quickly there because we weren't going to deal with that. But another big one is were the previous owners smokers? Some of these things, you don't really notice it so much at the thrift store, but when you get it home, you're like, what is that smell? And it's just something you can obviously tell if it was a smoker. But then sometimes there's just some other funky smell and you're like, what is this? There could have been some harmless spills or accidents that occurred which came into contact with these items. Or maybe they weren't so accidental, or I don't know, you just never know. Um, Items can be exposed to questionable substances, so be careful with that if you do find these at a thrift store. Again, I don't think too many thrift stores sell those things, but we have seen them. So when it comes to fabric, just be careful. One last quick note about fabric in a thrift store is if you do have actual donated fabric that's like on a bolt, or like a bunch of it is available that you can sew with, that stuff is usually pretty cool because it hasn't been used. Or, if it's just leftovers that somebody didn't need and it's the right leafy and floral print, then there you go. You can make your own pillows and curtains or anything else that you might know how to make. So that is what we have to say about fabrics. But, so about thrift stores, just give yourself some time. These, I would say, probably require the most amount of time because a lot of displays are largely disorganized, as I mentioned, things piled on top of each other. It takes time to go through them neatly. Some thrift stores accept everything as they are, others are a little more discerning. Check all of the shelves. If you see one particular area and then there's bottom shelves close to the floor and it looks like a jumbled mess, go through it anyway, just to see. It's a little harder for me because I'm tall. I'm about 6'5", but my wife is 5 feet and she's like, "Hey, wait a minute. This looks really cool." And I can't even see what she's looking at. And then getting down on your hands and knees down there sometimes isn't always the easiest thing to do, but it can be worth it. So when it comes to quality, thrift stores are going to be the cheapest place to shop. Occasionally you'll come across that rare find or something that is like in like new condition. But for the most part, these are things that they are very obviously used. Sometimes they've had a little too much wear and tear. It's going to be up to you to decide what level of pre-ownedness is going to be acceptable to you. But one tip too that we should throw out there is when it comes to something that might have any moving parts, obviously you want to check those and make sure that they work. Is everything functional about it? Just because something looks cool, if it has a functional use, you want to make sure that it's working properly as well. You just have to inspect everything very closely. If you find anything like a cool table or floor lamp, have a staff member plug it in, make sure it works. If they won't do that or there's no light bulb available, don't buy it, because we've come across things too that when you plug them in, they don't work. So they're supposed to test everything to make sure that everything is working. So I think that pretty much covers thrift shops here. Let's go ahead and move on to consignment shops. This is definitely a step up. It's something that I've learned about only in the last year. I had heard about them, but I didn't really know what they were or how they operated. But for those who might not know, consignment shops are different from thrift stores because the items are not donated. Instead, these are people who bring in goods that they want the store to resell for them on their behalf. And most consignment shops are nonprofits or they support a particular charity. Some could be privately owned, but the store takes a percentage of the price. So whatever they sell, usually they will keep 30 or 40%, while you, as the owner, get 60 or 70% for the items sold. These tend to have a much more organized look to them. This is where, because items are for sale and there is an actual owner involved, good consignment shops will display items properly. It's going to just look a lot nicer when you walk in. Many of these tend to have high-end brand or designer names, things you wouldn't find at a thrift store. This is where you're going to find higher quality furniture. You might even find antiques, other pieces. This is where vintage comes into play because there is value to a lot of vintage, and the people who brought them in for sale, they know that. And so they do want to get a higher return on it. We've noticed too that this is where you can get things like high quality mirrors. For some reason, there's lots of mirrors in consignment shops, a lot of cool mirrors. Better artwork. A lot of times these are undamaged. Some are even signed by the artist. When they do get into upholsteries, you're going to find curtains and tablecloths, pillows and things like that, but they've all been professionally cleaned. That's a big difference between the thrift stores and consignment shops. So I would think that people bringing their items in, because now they're looking to make money on it, they would have had them cleaned. But there are some consignment shops that actually have things cleaned before they'll put it out on the floor. So look for those. There's also a lot of really cool lamps, lighting fixtures. This is where we've seen some really cool tropical lighting that was inspired by palm leaves or some forms of tribal art, cultural designs. You still need to inspect lampshades, check for any damage, check for any wear and tear because lampshades are fragile. But if you do find a really cool lamp and the shade is really a little too damaged for you, go ahead and buy it anyway because shades can be replaced and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do that. We've seen some places online where that's what they do. They offer replacements for things like shades and other home things. But if you can find a cool replacement shade online, that makes it totally worth it. We do want to mention pricing and how you should approach this because, obviously with the thrift store, things are priced to sell. They need to move that stuff because they get a ton of donations in. Consignment shops kind of operate on the same way. They want to move product because they've got new stuff waiting in the wings. We've seen several of them have tiered pricing, which I think is pretty cool. But there is a risk with this that the item that you want might not be there when you come back to check. So the way tier pricing works is, for example, one store here in Houston, they use a 3-level pricing. So they will go ahead and price it at the highest price that they feel it could sell, and it'll have a date. And that's the date that this price is in effect. On that same price tag, underneath that, there will be a lower price. So instead of maybe $35, the lower price is now $26. And there's another date that's several weeks out. If the item doesn't sell by the first date, the item now becomes available at that lower price at that second date. So if there's something that you come across and you find, oh, maybe it's a little out of my price range, or maybe it's worth the gamble and I should come and just check back, maybe just after that date, we've seen it happen where you come back and that item is still there and now you can get it at the lower price. And with the third tier pricing, if they use 3 tiers, you even have a third price with a third date on there. So that sometimes happens too, where a really cool piece is still there at that third date. So now instead of $35, maybe you're paying $15 for it. There is that risk though, that when you come back, someone else who really loved the piece bought it already. So there is that gamble that you have to be prepared for. But you can pick up some really, really cool pieces, especially if the particular store you're looking at uses that kind of tiered pricing. And then what happens if an item ultimately doesn't sell? Some of them have arrangements where the owners can pick up their stuff if it just didn't sell. Others will go ahead and donate to local thrift stores. So what you should do is check with the consignment store to see which local thrift stores they use. And it's usually one that's nearby. Then you can just buzz over there. That's going to be a thrift store where you're going to find nicer stuff. Be sure to check with your consignment shop to see what local thrift stores they use, because chances are you're going to find some really cool things over there. So consignment shops, yeah, very, very cool. But check for sales. Some of them do have sales at certain times of the year. Others will have periodic discounts, so you can save even on top of whatever tiered pricing they might already have. And then ask about delivery, because some of them, if you do purchase large items, I mean, some of them carry huge pieces of furniture. They do have delivery assistance. Some will deliver for a fee. Others don't offer it. If you buy that big, huge wardrobe of some sort, or just a big, huge hutch or whatever it is, you're going to have to figure out how to get it home. So know that beforehand. So moving on to our next source here of really cool stuff is estate sales. And these are cool. I've gotten into these. My wife really likes them too, because you can find some really, really cool stuff. There's kind of a rush with them because When you get in there, you know that if you don't buy it now, you're never going to see it again. These are items that are obviously not going to be available again. Nothing is restocked. They are sales that take place on a single day, or in many cases, over a period of 3 to 4 days. And usually, for people who don't know, these are usually held in someone's home by an estate sale company that's been hired by the family. After the family has removed anything of sentimental value or anything that they don't want to sell, the sale company will come in and they'll organize, they appraise, they price everything. They literally turn the house into a temporary little store with everything out on folding tables and made available for the general public to just come through. Occasionally, a sale will be held at the company's warehouse if the house itself is not available for sale, if there was damage in the house or something happened that made it unsafe, or everything needs to be moved out immediately because the house was already sold or for whatever reason. But sometimes you do go to a company's warehouse location and you can get some really cool stuff. But 9 times out of 10, they are held in an actual house. And it happens when people have chosen to downsize or a homeowner has passed away. Um, then the family, they just need to let everything go in a sale like this. It's a good way to sell what's in the house while making some money. We've even encountered some estate sales which happen because the people who own the house simply just want to change their decorating style. And there was one that we went to where literally everything in the house was for sale. And we thought maybe someone had passed away or they were going to move. And the sale company said, nope, they just want to redecorate. They're going to go in a whole new direction. So I thought, wow, sell everything down to your forks and knives and the whole show. But that's what they do. So these sales, the reason we really like them is you many times can find a lot of high end stuff, a lot of high end decor. Not always. I mean, it depends where the sale is. And, if it happens to be in a more upscale neighborhood, that's where you're going to tend to find a lot of the nicer things. But you're going to find the home furnishings, the decor, kitchenware and appliances, clothing, toys. These are excellent for people who are into collectibles, things that have value, memorabilia, sporting equipment, vintage items. The thing that's kind of sets estate sales apart is because now you've got a whole collection that somebody was putting together. There's a particular theme or, just collectibles, whether it's old albums or music equipment or dolls or a series of something, China sets or whatever they are. That's the cool thing for people who are into collectibles, memorabilia, vintage items. Estate sales are awesome. You can actually go to estatesales.net and just plug in your zip code, and it will show you all the sales that are within whatever vicinity of your home that you specify. It also shows auctions, businesses that are moving, businesses that are going out of business, that are liquidating everything. You can filter it to whatever you want, but estatesales.net, we highly recommend that. When you do go, don't be as surprised to see as you're scouting through the kitchen or whatever, they might have some cabinets which are taped off as they might in a bedroom or a closet that's taped off. That's usually because the homeowner or the family members have things in there which they haven't moved out yet, which are not for sale. But whatever is not taped closed, you can open. And we've seen things down to food pantry items, kitchen spices. In the bathroom, you've got personal bath and shower toiletries. Some of these that have been used, they're sitting there in the shower, they're in the tub, and there's a price tag on it. So I still think that's a little odd, but for people, that they have no problem with that, you're going to find things at some pretty good prices in there. So the other reason we think estate sales are a gold mine is because usually most homes are decorated in a particular style. So you're going to have a lot of accent or decor pieces or furniture that is all from the same style. That can be a gold mine when you're trying to redo a room, because if you're lucky and other people haven't bought stuff first, you can nab a lot of really cool pieces in one space at one time. Just A note about estate sales, though, and you'll see this on estatesales.net, they're very, very careful about advertising when the sale will be, but they specifically do not give out the address until right prior to the sale, because there are people that are really into these and they will get there as early as they can to be the first one in the house. And I mean, I've never seen anybody be rude, but they'll post a lot of pictures of things that are for sale on the website. So you've already got an idea of what's in the house. And this is a way to filter through which sales may be of interest to you and which ones aren't. But if you find one where the people are into tropical design or whatever, you're going to have a lot of like-minded people at that same sale. So you need to politely elbow your way through to that specific piece that you want. And of course, always being polite. Rudeness is never allowed. But there are people that are on a mission and they will nab stuff up pretty quickly as possible. And, they'll bring their brother, their sister, their friends. The more hands you have, the more things you can hold. So just be prepared for that. But estate sales are fun. We absolutely love them. If you find something in the tropical themed department, I mean, this is where you're going to get clocks to dishware, linens, sometimes collectibles. The beauty of this is that they were all owned by the same person typically. So the quality of care is going to be the same throughout them all. When it comes to vintage furniture or original artwork and sculptures, collectibles and antiques, this is where you're going to find the most of those, is at estate sales. And the wonderful thing about that is they're typically going to be in excellent condition or near excellent, because many times these sales are held in homes where everything's been there for decades. Nothing's moved. To me, nothing damages things in a home more than moving, unless there's some natural disaster or something. When you move, it's almost like no matter how much care you put into it or how good your moving company is, things get damaged. They get scratched. Parts end up missing, whatever. The cool thing with estate sales is a lot of this stuff has never moved, or it's rarely been moved from one location to another. So cherished items, things that become available for purchase, they are spared the damage that usually happens during frequent packing and moving. I mean, even a trip to a consignment shop can cause scratch and dents, as you're taking something over there. Another cool thing about estate sales is that if the homeowner used a particular design theme, you're going to see all of the pieces you're interested in their original environment. This is where you can pick up some really great design inspirations too. Maybe the way the room was done in colors, or, just the overall decor style of the house can really help you visualize, hey, how is this going to work at my house when you see it in the original environment? That's pretty cool. We really think that that's super helpful. So a couple tips about estate sales is that obviously the greatest number of items available will be on the first day of the sale. So if you can, be there then, but you will pay the higher price. Many estate sale companies do drop prices as the days progress, as they get towards the end of the sale, because the goal is obviously to have sold as much as possible. And what doesn't sell is either returned back to the homeowner or the person who hired the company, or it's all donated. So there's another tip. You can check with the estate sale company to see which thrift store they use or what donation center, and see where they're going to donate it, because what didn't sell will end up there. So that's pretty much it for estate sales. Preview them online. Again, estatesales.net. We are not affiliated with them. We don't make any money from them. We just think they're awesome. So that's why we're telling you about them. But the photos, most of them post some pretty decent photos of what's going to be in the sale. So you can get an idea of what's going to be there. Arrive early. It's all first come, first serve. Many of them do not allow big purses and backpacks and things like this. Some of them, they will have you put those things in the car. A lot of them don't have small children allowed. So I don't recommend bringing small children to an estate sale, because it's a lot of people moving around, a lot of activity. You don't want anything getting broken. You can always try to negotiate a price. it never hurts to ask. The worst they can do is say no. So that's your tips and info there about estate sales. So today we've covered thrift stores, consignment shops, estate sales, three excellent sources. And I do mean excellent sources for looking for things for your tropical escape. It is just a lot more budget friendly than buying brand new. Sometimes you will find things that are so unique, uh, older, even vintage pieces that are simply not made anymore. There's just a lot of really cool stuff out there, a lot of cool stuff. So we encourage you to get out and shop. Check out our select seconds category in our online store. Do know that everything in that specific category, all sales are final. We're just not in a position where we can accept returns and exchanges on select seconds. We bring it in, we have to move it out. So we do have our podcast sale going on right now. It is 30% off of everything until February 28th. So get in there and look, because if you find something cool, we won't get any more. That's just how it works. We have to go to some more sales and find some more cool stuff. And we have our favorite consignment shops here in Houston. And man, sometimes I wish I could bring home a whole truckload because they've got some great stuff. But yeah, check us out online. Check out our blog post, as I mentioned at the top of the show. We've got a lot of really cool information there. And again, thank you. Just thank you so much for taking time to listen and visiting with us and visiting our website. Visit with us on Patreon. We're really trying to build that up there. We do appreciate your support there in our little membership tiers, and we've got some cool merchandise coming. We're getting into branding. That Cerulean Bay brand is going to grow. So thanks again for visiting with us today, and we wish you an awesome day. We will connect in our next episode, which is coming out very soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.